I didn't set out to become the other woman. No one does, really. We like to think we're better than that we have lines we won't cross, that we're smarter than the women in movies who fall for married men. But the truth is, you never think it'll be you until it is. I met Ethan on my second week at the company. He was calm, sharp, measured. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to lead a room. Director of Strategic Planning, 12 years in the company. Married, that part was made clear in the intro slide of his welcome presentation. Happily married, 2 kids, lives in the suburbs, coaches youth soccer. He wasn't flirtatious, wasn't inappropriate. If anything, he was distant. I was a mid-level content manager with too much ambition and not enough access. I admired him at first. The way he simplified chaos. The way he always seemed a step ahead of everyone else in a room. Our paths didn't really cross until I was put on a cross-functional project, the kind that eats your weekends and your soul, late nights in the office, Slack messages at midnight, shared complaints about how no one upstream knew what they were doing. That's how it began. In DMs, not glances. In jokes, not touches. It was safe. Or so I told myself. The first time I stayed past PM, he brought me coffee. No big gesture, just a paper cup set quietly beside my laptop. Black, no sugar, right? I blinked. How did you? He shrugged. You said it once, on a call, 2 weeks ago. That shouldn't have meant anything. But it did, because my own boyfriend of 3 years had never remembered how I took my coffee. Because it had been a long time since anyone remembered small things about me. We talked more after that. He asked questions, real ones, about my ideas, about where I wanted to take my career, about what I thought the company was doing wrong and why no one seemed brave enough to say it. He made me feel seen, not in a romantic way, not at first, but in the kind of way that sticks to your skin long after the conversation ends. The shift came slowly. We started sitting near each other in meetings, leaving good luck post-its on each other's desks before big presentations, trading memes in Slack that only we would understand. My friends joked, "Careful, office husband alert." I laughed, played it off, because nothing had happened. He never touched me, never crossed a line. But there was a moment late one Thursday when I looked up from my screen and caught him watching me, and he didn't look away. That was the first time I felt it, the line we were dancing near, the edge of something sharp. I told myself, he's married. I told myself, you're not that kind of woman. I told myself, it's just attention, just a little warmth. You're not doing anything wrong. But when someone sees the parts of you you thought were invisible, it's hard to walk away, especially when your own relationship is running on fumes, especially when every conversation at home feels like a rerun, especially when "how was your day" turns into "did you pay the gas bill?" and nothing more. Ethan never complained about his wife. That almost made it worse. He just never mentioned her. And I never asked, because if I did, the illusion would shatter. The unspoken agreement was, we wouldn't say what this was. We'd just keep showing up at the same time, working too late, smiling too long, messaging too often, and pretending we didn't know where this road was going. The first message that made me pause came on a Sunday morning. "Hope you're sleeping in today. You deserve a break." It was simple, sweet even, but it wasn't something a married man should have sent. And it wasn't something I should have smiled at the way I did. I typed, deleted, retyped, finally sent. "You too. Thanks for always noticing." He replied with a heart emoji, just one, the first we ever exchanged. And with that tiny, silent red symbol I crossed the line. The first time Ethan kissed me, It wasn't planned. We were the last two in the office again, a client deadline, a broken printer, a late dinner ordered out of exhaustion more than hunger. He stood close behind me as I reviewed mock-ups on the screen. I felt his breath before I felt his hand on mine. I turned. He didn't ask. I didn't stop him. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't frantic. It was quiet, the kind of kiss that doesn't need a second to know it's already gone too far. Afterward, we said nothing. He walked out first. I followed 10 minutes later, checking the hallways like a criminal, and that's how it stayed for a while, unspoken, hidden, careful. We didn't talk about what this was. We didn't label anything, didn't make plans, didn't promise futures, but we kept doing it. Parking lot meetings after work, lunches in his car, weekend texts that began as work excuses and ended as whispered confessions. It felt like a drug, this secret world only we understood, and like all addictions, it started to seep into the rest of my life. I became jittery at home, snappy with friends, forgetful in meetings because I was too busy checking my phone under the table. My boyfriend Liam started noticing. One night, he asked, "Is there someone else?" I froze. I should have said no. I should have lied like I'd been lying to myself, but instead, I said, "I don't know," because I didn't. Not really. I didn't know who I was anymore when I was with Ethan. I wasn't a cheater, not by nature. I was the reliable one, the girl who followed rules, the girl who always left parties early. But with him, I felt like a different version of myself, bolder, sharper, alive, and maybe that's what made it so hard to stop. We were careful, but not careful enough. A junior designer asked me one day if I was dating someone. I blinked. What? She shrugged. I don't know. You just glow more lately. Glow. That word should have felt like a compliment, but it felt like a warning. Another day, a product manager joked in the elevator. You and Ethan sure spend a lot of time together. Should we be worried you're plotting a takeover? I laughed too loudly. He laughed with me, and for 1 second too long, our eyes locked, just enough for it to register. The awareness, the suspicion, the danger. We made new rules after that. No Slack emojis, no hallway glances, no more accidental run-ins at the coffee machine. But what we didn't stop, couldn't stop, was the messaging, the late-night voice notes, the Spotify playlists, the secret folder on Google Drive where we shared quotes, inside jokes, half-written stories we never finished. He told me, "You're the only person I've ever been this honest with." And I believed him. That was the real hook. Not the sex, not the thrill, the belief that I knew him in ways no one else did. He told me his wife didn't ask anymore when he came home late, that they hadn't been intimate in months, that they were living parallel lives. I asked him once, "Will you ever leave her?" He looked down at his hands and said, "I don't know what that would even look like." And somehow, I took that as hope. Hope that maybe he was just waiting for the right time, that maybe I was worth untangling his life for. I started picturing it us outside the office, at a concert, at brunch, at my sister's wedding, him, mine. No secrets. Then the company holiday party was announced. A black tie, end-of-year celebration, spouses welcome. I felt something sink in my chest. We never talked about it. I didn't ask if he was going, but I bought the dress anyway, red, sleek, risky, because part of me, the foolish, desperate part, wanted him to see me, wanted everyone to see me, like maybe if I showed up in full color, I wouldn't feel like the shadow I'd become. I thought I was prepared. I wasn't, because nothing prepares you for the moment when you see her for the first time, smiling, radiant, standing beside him like she belonged, and you realize she does.
I remember the exact moment I saw her. I was standing by the bar, holding a flute of cheap champagne, trying to look like I belonged. The lights were dim but elegant, strung across the ceiling like stars trying too hard. I'd spent an hour getting ready. Red dress, gold earrings, soft curls. All of it carefully curated to say, "Look at me." And I knew I looked good. But when she walked in, I vanished. She wasn't flashy. No red dress. No designer clutch. Just a simple navy gown, a soft smile, and the kind of quiet confidence you can't fake. Her hand rested lightly on Ethan's arm, like it belonged there, like it had been there for years. And maybe that's what broke me first. Because I thought I had prepared for this moment, thought I could handle seeing her, thought she'd be cold, uptight, maybe rude. But she wasn't. She was warm. She laughed at someone's joke at the coat check. She fixed Ethan's collar before they stepped into the room. And when she was introduced to me, the woman sleeping with her husband, she smiled and said, "Hi, I've heard so much about you. I'm Julia." Julia. Her name was Julia. Of course it was. Soft vowels, elegant consonants. She looked like someone named Julia. Someone who sends thank you cards and remembers birthdays. I forced a smile and shook her hand. Her grip was gentle. No warning in her eyes. No suspicion. No sharp edge. And somehow that made it worse. I wanted her to hate me, to glare, to roll her eyes, to whisper to Ethan and drag him out. But she didn't. She stood beside him like they were still in love, still connected, still something I could never replace. And maybe they were. Maybe I was never anything more than a pause in a longer sentence. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I don't remember the speeches, or the food, or who won Employee of the Year. Only remember watching them dance. Not romantically, not dramatically. Just a husband and wife moving together to a slow jazz cover of Can't Help Falling in Love. And I thought, you already fell. I was just the landing. Later in the restroom, Julia walked in while I was fixing my lipstick. She smiled in the mirror. "That dress looks amazing on you. You're one of the few who actually made an effort tonight." I said, "Thank you." She laughed softly. "Ethan said you're the one who saved that Q4 pitch last minute, right? He said you're brilliant under pressure." I froze. That word, brilliant, coming from her, about me. I felt like vomiting. She wasn't supposed to like me. She wasn't supposed to admire me. She was supposed to be cold, harsh, jealous. But she was kind, and I couldn't bear it. I left early that night, told my coworkers I wasn't feeling well. Lied through a smile, grabbed my coat and bolted. Outside, the winter air slapped my skin like punishment. I cried in the backseat of my Uber. Not because I'd been caught, not because I lost anything, but because I finally saw what I had helped break. Julia was real. Not just a concept, not just a name Ethan didn't mention. She was human, warm, gracious, and she had no idea who I was, that I was the voice in her husband's phone after midnight, the name behind private Slack channels, the shadow that watched her dance and wished to disappear. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face in the mirror, smiling, calling me brilliant, and it broke me in ways Ethan never could. After the party, I tried to disappear, not from the company, just from him. I stopped answering his messages, left his Slack texts on seen, ignored his meeting invites, even when he tried to disguise them as group syncs. I blocked his number for 3 days, then unblocked it again, because I was weak. Because curiosity is crueler than shame, and he knew it. Ethan didn't stop. "Can we talk?" Please don't let that night ruin what we have. She doesn't know. You're overthinking. You mean more to me than you realize. Each message chipped away at the guilt and replaced it with confusion, because part of me still wanted to believe him, still wanted to believe I was special, not just a mistake in a red dress. But every time I pictured Julia, her smile, her voice, I felt sick. So I finally replied, "We're done. Please stop." He didn't. Not immediately. He said he'd explain. Said she was distant again. Said the party was for appearances. I wanted to scream, "Then why did it feel like she loved you more than you ever deserved?" But I didn't. Instead, I shut down. Showed up to work, sat at the far end of meetings, and stopped contributing. Like I used to. My spark, gone. My confidence, cracked. My sense of self, muddied beyond recognition. Then, one Tuesday morning, I got the email. No subject line. Just her name. Julia K.I. froze. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The body of the email? Only one sentence. "I always knew. I just hoped you'd be better than him." That was it. No signature, no threats, no punctuation, just that, and it felt like a knife made of silence. I stared at it for 10 minutes, then read it again and again, until the words burned themselves into the back of my eyelids. I always knew. She knew. She saw it. She saw me, and she let me speak to her at that party. Let me take credit for a pitch I didn't write alone. Let me wear red like a crown when it was always a warning. I just hoped you'd be better than him. Not nicer, not smarter, just better. And I wasn't. I wasn't better. I was exactly like him, a coward in pretty packaging. I didn't reply. What could I say? That I was sorry? That I didn't mean for it to happen? That I didn't think she'd find out? None of that mattered. Because she did know. She had always known. And she gave me the chance to prove her wrong. And I didn't. After that, I stopped pretending. I started packing my things slowly. Books from my desk, framed photos, the coffee mug he once complimented. I took them home one by one, like sneaking grief out of a building brick by brick. I didn't tell HR, didn't file a transfer, didn't say goodbye. One day I just didn't come back. No exit interview, no farewell. Slack. Just silence. Because after Julia's message, I realized the real punishment isn't being exposed. It's being seen. Truly seen. By someone who had every reason to hate you and chose disappointment instead. I didn't leave with a scene. There was no confrontation, no shouting, no dramatic exit, just me, quietly slipping away. I stopped responding to work emails, unsubscribed from team calendars, let my company laptop collect dust until IT sent me a final reminder. I packed my desk on a Sunday. No one saw. Me. No one asked why. Maybe they already knew, or maybe I didn't matter enough anymore for them to care. I left my badge at the front desk, dropped my keys in an envelope, walked out of that building like I was closing a door on a version of myself I never wanted to meet again. I moved, took a job at a smaller firm in a different city. Nothing glamorous, just quieter. I told people it was burnout, said I needed change, that the pace had become too much, all technically true, just not the whole truth. Because how do you explain to someone that you ran away, not from your job, but from the woman you became inside it? I haven't spoken to Ethan since. He never emailed, never called, never followed, and that's fine. Because he was never really mine. Not in any way that mattered. He probably stayed. With Julia. With the house and the kids and the familiar routines. He probably moved on. Maybe he even forgot me. But I haven't forgotten him. Not because I miss him, but because of what knowing him cost me. Some days I feel okay. I work. I read. I cook for myself. I'm polite to neighbors. I go to therapy. I smile more than I used to. But guilt is strange. It doesn't come with fire and fury. It comes with whispers, with quiet echoes in the most unexpected places, like when someone says, "You're such a kind person." And I freeze, because I remember Julia's email. That one line I can never unread. "I just hoped you'd be better than him. Not kinder, not smarter, not more successful, just better." And I wasn't. There are people who will say I was young, that I made a mistake, that we all do things we regret. And maybe that's true. But regret doesn't undo what's done. It just teaches you to carry it with grace, to hold your past in one hand and your future in the other, and hope they don't crush each other. I don't. Miss Ethan, I miss the person I thought I could become around him, the confident one, the clever one, the one who felt seen. But the truth is, the only time I was truly seen was by Julia. And she didn't see me as brilliant, or beautiful, or special. She saw me as a mirror, a reflection of the man she had quietly tolerated for years, and she hoped I would be different. But I wasn't, and I never got the chance to prove her wrong. So now, I live. I pay bills. I answer emails. I smile when people say nice things about me. And every time someone says, "You seem like a good person," I thank them and quietly wonder, would she agree?